Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and so provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachddanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 9th episode of season 16, a very special guest living with severe PTSD due to military service, Mr. Jason Pike. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Jason, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Jason Pike. I am a retired lieutenant colonel, which just means that I'm a senior military officer in retirement. And I've put in 31 years in the United States Army, and 9 years were those living overseas in 5 different countries across the globe. I've been around the world, seen a lot of things, and Dr. Dan, we can discuss how you want to go with this any way you want. I'm ready for any type of other conversations here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, Jason, for joining us and sharing your story, especially I'm sure that dealing with PTSD, you have seen a lot of things that 99.9% of the population would not want to see. So instead of going through all of your history when it comes to when did you join the military, etc., when you were sent overseas, what kind of assignment did they put you in, and what did you really, I would say, witness?
So my post-traumatic stress is the reason I got out, and it was accumulation of things that I had held in, and it wasn't just bombs and bullets. That was, of course, stressful, but it really was, I went under a federal investigation. I was basically thrown under the bus by my own people in a 2-year time frame in South Korea. The federal investigation involved subversion and espionage against the U.S. government, which was totally bullshit. It was totally false. And I had to go through a certain set of procedures of people following me around, weird things happening. They were trying to get me on something I didn't do. And of course, nothing ever happened, but it made me very, very angry. It was the first time I really wanted this was a peacetime situation in South Korea. And that's where the biggest punch of this ordeal, it was over a few years, started during this federal investigation that was totally bogus. And I can go on from there if you like, Dr. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because it's federal, we try to not get it too much into privacy issues.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I've got it in a book and it's all detailed out. I've changed names. It's been vetted by a few different people. But no, a lot of times in the military or the government, what they can do is if they don't like you, or if they just want to make your life miserable or transfer you, or maybe even try to get you fired, they can the organization can make up false accusations. And I know you've seen the television show where people are saying, well, this guy's going through a federal investigation, but everything's fine. Well, it's not true. I wasn't on the TV or the radio, thank God about that, but it was considered private, and I did have to go through some hoops. So that's where the big stressor occurred. Under false investigations. Now, what happened after that, I went back home from South Korea, which was just a normal assignment for the military. My father died. When my father died, I was under a weakened state already. And then they said, you're going to Afghanistan. So my family is my support network. I was holding this inside. I was totally confused. The first time I ever went to mental health therapy as a senior military person, while it was at that time very unpopular. Well, you didn't talk about that stuff anyway, but I did go, and then I was confused. My father dies. It was a 1, 2, 3 punch. Afghanistan was mostly a minor aggravation. That's where I went to war. It was mostly, when I went to Afghanistan, I was in a totally weakened state already from PTSD that I didn't know if I had or not. And when I went there, they were taking care of me more than I was taking care of them, I feel. We trained up for Afghanistan. I could have declared mental health or something, and I almost did that. But what happened was I did go and serve my year out in Afghanistan, but it took a toll on me, a big toll, which eventually I did get out of the military because of that. Yeah.
So when did the federal investigation happen? Was it in between Korea and Afghanistan, or when was it?
That was when I went to 2008 to 2010. So there was more than that. I had a bunch of false accusations. Yeah. So the federal investigations occurred pretty much 2008 to 2010. Rumors, innuendos, just various events. This was peacetime. This was not. That happened first. Then I come back from that. Totally just. I was still in a state of hell. My father dies. Then I went into a different state of hell, which was grief. Already a weakened person at that time. And then, oh, by the way, when that's happening, you got to go to Afghanistan. And that would be a tour that I would occur right after really when my father was dying. And then I left after I did go see him in the funeral. And then I went to Afghanistan, and a very, very weakened, almost I could not remember things. I could not. They're like, sir, do you remember to do this? Do you remember to do that? And I'm thinking, no, my mind was not on war at the time. My mind was on the federal investigation while I was because it just confused me. It stressed me out. And then my father's death. So I was grieving my father while I was in a war zone. I wasn't really focused a lot. In Afghanistan, I kind of had a death wish. In other words, I didn't feel scared at all with bombs and bullets and things of that nature, because I felt that I'd like to go ahead and leave. I'd like to go ahead and die. I do remember specifically praying not to get maimed. I wanted to just go ahead and be eliminated. But nothing like that occurred. There was some IED attacks on some Humvees outside the gates, and we had mortars that came in on us. But none of my people died. I only saw one Humvee a vehicle get blown up. But really, I was sort of numb in Afghanistan. I was not. I was sort of just like I was in a very focused, just keeping my foot in front of the other, and I wasn't scared, and I was kind of numb. And we just counting our days down, and I was really stressed out from the previous two events that had occurred in my life at that time. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning, Jason, that some of your own personnel threw you under the bus, and this is what triggered the federal investigation, or that was just an additional kind of whammy?
It was a whammy. I look back on it, and I had already served in my career 2 different times in South Korea, and I knew South Korea. At the time, I was a senior person with a lot of experience. I went in, and basically, there was just basically a turf battle. I walked on some people's toes professionally. I told them my strengths and weaknesses. They believed I should do this and do this. And I said, no, I'm not research oriented. I'm more of an operational person. It was a professional disagreement. I didn't walk the walk that they wanted. I was very respectful to them. It's just that I couldn't get along with a few different power plays. And I did not know I would go under a false investigation because of that. I kind of knew it was coming, because I knew once I went on the ground on that tour, I just could feel it. I could feel that the people didn't like me in the very beginning, before we had the disagreement. And I just felt that I was walking into basically a zoo, and that's what happened. I went under that, and I had to get a defense attorney. And basically he told me, he says, if you haven't done anything, nothing's going to happen, but you got to watch your back, because their job. So what their job is to try to find something on you. I mean, the investigators, we had criminal investigation involved of the U.S. Army. We had military intelligence involved in the U.S. Army. It was in Yongsan Garrison, and I had to go up on the hill, see my commander, the commander was briefed. I was briefed on the situation of passing on false information, federal government information to foreign nationals, which was totally bullshit. It was made up. Someone had, in the military or the government, we have a lot of hotlines. A hotline's used for emergency. You got suicide hotlines. You've got sexual harassment hotlines. You've got, if you want to be anonymous and send out some messaging, you can do that. But I didn't know you could do it just to play games on people, and they did. And there was a hotline on subversion and espionage against the U.S. government hotline. Something went out that I was passing on or doing, suspicious activity. And there was nothing to it. They did investigate me. They did check me out. Nothing ever happened. I was really angry because no one told me they were sorry after the end. It just sort of went away. There was a whole lot of activity that occurred in my life and disturbing me and the family. But nothing ever, no one says, hey, this was just a bunch. No one explained it to me. I did meet with the defense attorney. He says, once you leave and there's nothing there, it's it. That's going to be it. But I wish somebody would say, hey, I'm sorry about this. We understand that we screwed you up a little bit, but that didn't happen. And it was just it was sort of at that time, secret type of a thing. We just don't talk about it since they didn't. So yeah, that's kind of what happened in that third tour. Yeah.
And how, after dealing with the post-traumatic from all of what happened to you, did you have like nightmares? What happened after that when you knew that you were full-fledged PTSD?
I knew I was full-fledged PTSD after Afghanistan because my wife told me, and I had hints from. She said, "You got it. You're totally changed." And I think what happened is I just went through so much, and then Afghanistan was basically the tipping level. I come back. I was on Ativan. I wake up in the morning and I couldn't calm down. I was up in the morning just running around, and first I went on Ativan, then I went through some mental health counseling, and then from there, eventually, I went ahead and just said, "Hey, I got to leave the military," and I sought counseling, but I not only went into that, I went into in the Veterans Administration, but I went into various different, in the veterans, they have these nonprofit worlds where you can have a menu of types of PTSD therapy. Mm-hmm. There's you got exercise, you got meditation, you've got TMS, or you've got EMDR, which is a tapping, a type of a left processing. You've got a menu of things. And what they would do, I would go to these various workshops and taste, just like you go to a restaurant, you have a menu of items that you might want to eat. Yes. In the nonprofit world. Yeah, exactly. So they'd have a menu of items in the PTSD world that you might want to taste to see what fits for you. What fits for you may not fit for me. What I like, you may not like. Personally, I like that left physical processing. What happened with me, and it was by accident, I jumped on an electrical machine, and I was doing therapy, but I didn't know it, and I did a left process. But a lot of people exercise, and we both go left to right. But what I did at this time is I started vomiting out my emotions on the machine while I was going through the physical process. So if I had these images in my mind, and if I cried, I would cry on the machine, I would get mad on the machine, and I would continue to work on the machine while I was actually vomiting out my various emotions, even happiness or sadness, everything. And I would throw it out there. And I'm sure people would look at me and say, "What's going on with that guy?" But I didn't care at the time because it was my health, and whatever. We're in a gym, and just let me be alone. And I did that, and that helped out a lot. And I had that combination with EMDR, and then just bike. I also like bike riding, and I have 2 dogs. Dogs are very well, and go walking the dogs in parks, and just having the love of a dog around is very good. So there's a number of things, and what works for me may not work for you, but you could just go to a workshop or maybe a week-long thing of just teaching you the various different menu items out there for PTSD. Yeah.
So do you feel that physical exercise enabled you to manage your symptoms better, but never really eliminate them? Because again, how many years can someone with severe PTSD live with, even with mental therapy, EMDR and all, But do you think does the symptoms of PTSD will eventually subside?
I know you're just pretty much managing them, and you just manage them the best way you can, day to day, week by week. Um, with me, I love the quiet times of the morning where you drink coffee and maybe walk outside and see nature, things of that nature, and get with the dogs. I know isolation. I like isolation, but I know I've got to somehow be social with people as well. But if I can get my time in, my time or my care in, which probably need a lot more than most. I get that in. I get that in, and that helps me out day to day. I recently found, one thing I just recently came across, and I do it every day. Matter of fact, when I get off this show, I'm going to do it. But there's this cold, hot contrasting effect that occurs. Everybody, a lot of people have gone to the gym or to a jacuzzi and it feels good to do that. But what if you get into a cold shower or a cold plunge and have that contrasting effect that occurs? And I found a facility that does that. I mean, and if you don't have the facility where you have a cold plunge, I know that sounds, but you can mentally, and you go through the pain a little bit during the cold plunge, but then after a few minutes, you later on in the day, you feel good. And
Yes.
I do that hot heat cold therapy. I think that works really well for me. Oh, it's almost addicting though.
It is. Well, every time that I finish my fitness training, I actually take a very cold shower.
Oh yeah.
That kind of like helps contract the
Yeah.
muscles, etc. So it actually is very, very good. But yeah, of course, we're not talking about minus 20 degrees here.
No.
Big bath of ice, or those
Yeah.
they call them, I don't know, the Eskimo jumpers, whatever it is, where they go and just jump in the freezing water. But yeah, I could see that this can actually help you, and also it stimulates the immune system, which also, yes, it has a lot of amazing side effects on it. So that's the physical aspect when it comes to helping you. But when it comes to interacting or certain triggers, Jason, that brings back those,
Yeah.
you come across them often.
Yeah, certain triggers would be just memories of people who are basically mean, and you could tell they're mean, just mean. Usually it's going to be a female, a mean female. I used to be very scared of females in power, because I feel that or men in power that were just mean or bad leaders. That would trigger me sometimes. But I've gotten over that. I've written a book that has also helped. It's A Soldier Against All Odds. It's on Amazon. But with this book, it has also helped me through the writing and getting this thing out. So a lot of things I've gotten over just because I've talked about them and I've written about them so much. So that helps as well, the writing. Yeah.
And now in your day-to-day operation, when it comes to living with the symptoms of PTSD, is there anything that you can let our listeners know, those who are dealing with other type of PTSD, either child traumatic experience and so on? And I know it's different than what you've experienced because it happened to you when you were already an adult, but those who actually remember when they were a child and they were going through a lot of trauma, is it something that you manage it in a similar way, or we would talk about night and day when it comes to what is caused by childhood or what is caused by military?
So with my childhood, I had a disease, an osteomyelitis, where my bone dissolved twice when I was about 8 years old. I was also identified as I had a learning problem, a learning disability when I was growing up. I failed the first grade. Um, Dyslexia or possibly Asperger's syndrome. I don't know what it is. Asperger's syndrome is a form of autism. I don't know what it would have been. But those are things that happened. But my dad had a really good father that told me just to keep on going and never give up. But really, as a teenager, I set myself alone a lot. In other words, I didn't engage. I was not the most popular. I was not the brain, and I was not the athletic when I was a teenager. And I basically, I just developed. I just went my own route. My parents just said, just do what you need to do. There was not a whole lot of expectations by my parents on me. Thankfully, that was good because I became creative in how I solved situations in my life. That's probably my gift, would be the creativity of how I work through situations and problems, not necessarily by the book, and not necessarily maybe considered the regulation way, but it was my way, and if it worked, it worked. Yeah.
So do you feel because you were either not diagnosed as Asperger or this, dealing with dyslexia, do you feel this is what prompted you to wanting to join a structured environment such as the military? Or who suggested you to go and approach the military as being a good venue for you to be able to explore your talent?
Yes. So I felt where I came from a small town in South Carolina, and there was two options basically. You go to college, which was considered out of the question according to the experts, but the military was always an option. And I didn't join active duty in the beginning. I would join the reserves. My father suggested I might want to join the military since, that might be a route to, have more of a hands-on structured, environment.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, I didn't do well in the structured environment, almost been thrown out a few times. But what I did was I went through the system, and I found a very unique specialty of public health in the military where I could, exploit my talents, which were science. But that was basically by accident. And I just sort of kept on going. And I had a lot of twists and turns along the way. I'm considered successful, but what makes my life a little unique is all the problems and the amount of times I almost got kicked out and all the trouble that I went through. At the time, I just felt, pain and suffering, or pain and failure, were introduced early in my life. I felt that's one of my gifts. It was introduced so early. I just thought that's what it was about. Plus, I had a good father that said, you just keep on going, never give up, because he was worse off than I was as a child. So that's kind of how that developed. Yeah.
So the books that you wrote related to the federal investigation, or was it related to the soldier against all odds?
Soldier against all. It's about all the odds. So the federal investigation, and that's sort of where the deep part goes. But it was not just that. There were many, many arrests. There was many ass chewings. There's love and life and happiness and just crazy events that occurred. I've almost drowned in shit in Korea. Like I fell in. There's just so many stories in my life that were just various crazy stories. I said, I think I could give inspiration and hope to other people, and no matter what phase of life that they're going through. Yeah, that's how I developed it, against all odds, meaning that was just one of many odds, which was a big one, the federal, that was a big one, but it was many other ones. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to write this book and share your story? And were you afraid of any repercussion of the military, because you mentioned a lot of details about your federal investigation that was really not based with any proof or facts, but it was just to be able to destroy your name?
Yes, so I was fearful of repercussions. I changed the names in that chapter. A lot of the names are true when I don't, and I got, so defamation and liability insurance, I've got that, but I've also got the names changed, and I know there's probably been a statute of limitations. I was never charged with anything. I'm innocent as can be. But no, the repercussions that I've had so far were basically, some people that were on the fence with me have distanced themselves from me, and then some people that were on the fence have just admired me. So I've either become very, very admired by some other people, and I've become kind of distanced away from other people that were sort of on the fence, or your acquaintances. But as far as, there's only a handful of people that I changed the names. If they read the book, they would be very, very angry. But that was in a different space and a different time and a different country. So we all have our little organizations. They've all retired. They've all gotten out of the military. These people that were my nemesis, I guess, and they're all living in different states. So maybe they formed together at a click at a period of time during that investigation where I don't think they'll ever, you know what I mean? They're gone from that click, from South Korea, and they're retired. So I think I'm pretty cool on that. Yeah.
But don't you think that would have protected you somehow? Because I'm not sure if you remember the movie Basic Instinct, where Sharon Stone was the author. She wrote a book on how to kill someone with an ice pick. And then a lot of people say, well, obviously she cannot be the killer, because why would she kill someone with the same exact way that she wrote her book? It will make her an alibi. So did you, in a way, write this book so no one who were reading this book, who were the culprit of everything that happened for defamation, all, they will not come out, because then that would make them like a possible, like, yeah.
Yeah, if the people who were behind a lot of the stuff that occurred to me read the book, they would exactly know who they are. And so because I lived in such a small military specialty of public health, that they know, and other people who read the book have already told me, I know who you're talking about. So meaning yes, so people who are not even associated with that charge, they can read these fake names and know exactly who they are. So but when it comes to, well, I've got liability insurance, so I've also changed the names. The main thing I feel is changing the names according to what I have read. That's the main thing. If you say anything bad about someone, you've got to change your names. And there's really, so I think my honesty with the book, with my own hangups and my own issues that I had in the military, because not everything's not my fault. There were some things that were my fault. Me getting arrested in the military just for doing stupid things that I come out with, that it's not going to. And then when you go to that chapter, you're going to think, well, you know, you're going to see a standard of truth, you know, exactly. So so in this book, A Soldier Against All Odds, I'm just trying to get someone to get inspired, maybe understand that tomorrow is a different day, and what comes around, you know, you can always have a menu of things in post-traumatic stress or depression. There's possibly some depression that I've got as well. I'm going to be addressing with TMS and other things, but no, that's basically how this book in my life developed. Of 31 years in the Army and 9 years were overseas.
So where can people find your book, Mr. Jason?
Amazon, A Soldier Against All Odds. It's on Amazon. And I got a website, Jason Pike, jasonpike.org, jasonpike.org. You'll see it there. And I'm on all the social media handles on jasonpike.org. My biography and everything is right there. Yeah.
Well, we're going to put the description on the, or we're going to put the information on the description of the podcast. But on that note, Jason, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 16 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. To all those facing military-related PTSD, your strength, sacrifices, and resilience inspire all of us. Healing is possible, and you're not alone. You can overcome and face your wounds with courage is commendable. Lean on a supportive community and seek empathy from others who understand. Be kind to yourself and celebrate every step forward. Engage in activities that bring you joy and peace, exploring coping mechanisms and treatment options. Remember your inner strength shaped by challenges and perseverance. May your healing journey bring peace, resilience, and renewed purpose. Scars don't define you. Your spirit does. Thank you for your services, and keep moving forward, knowing that you're stronger than you realize. Brighter days are ahead. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.